Top 8 showdown, it was at high noon. It was in Lexington. Alabama outlasts Kentucky 102-97. Grant Nelson, 25-11 in this game. Mark Sears, 24 points, 9 assists. Jeff, you and I talked in the afternoon. Rob Dalster, your instant reaction to the Alabama Crimson Tide going into Lexington and responding from a loss earlier this week.
Welcome to life in the SEC, right? You go from at Texas A&M to getting Alabama at home. When you're Alabama, you go from playing at Texas A&M, you get Ole Miss at home, which was a loss, and you have to go on the road to Kentucky and you find a way to win. Like this league is just insane. There's no breaks, there's no nights off, there's no easy games that you're going to end up with unless you happen to get Arkansas at home. But I mean, look, Mark Sears, 24-9, 1 turnover against Lamont Butler, really impressive. Grant Nelson had 25 points and 11 rebounds. Like you mentioned, Fanta, he had scored 21 points in his previous 3 games. When you get those 2 guys going, it kind of changes what the ceiling for this Alabama team can be. And it was a really impressive win to go into that building and come away with a W. I think that's when it comes to this conference and when it comes to the SEC and you're looking at maybe the top 5 or 6 teams in there, it's just you got to kind of put on your seatbelt and be ready to have a good time. And there's only so much you could say when you have 2 teams that are this good and this talented going back and forth. I'll tell you this much, man. I love watching Alabama and Kentucky. Like both of those teams, the pace that they play at, the style that they play, it's just a lot of fun. It makes for when you have really good teams that play this style, it makes for a great product for fans that happen to be tuning in now that college football is over. And it was just a fun game, man. That's really all you can say.
Goodman, did you take more from Alabama from a winning perspective or that Kentucky allowed 102?
No, Alabama from a winning perspective, just because they've been a little bit up and down this year, and I'm still kind of waiting for them to hit their stride. And I'm not sure that's going to do it, but I certainly think that was a big bounce-back performance and showed a lot of toughness, right? I mean, they didn't rebound well. They weren't tough against Ole Miss in the loss at home the other day. And, they were all over the glass today. Obviously, Kentucky isn't the greatest defensive team, but I thought Alabama showed a lot of toughness. LeBaron played better. Sears was terrific, even though his shooting percentage didn't show that. Again, I think Diabate is awesome, and I think Youngblood's coming. I do. I think it was rough for him coming back off the injury, and now he's starting to kind of find his groove and where he fits with this team. And I think you're going to see them, be a better shooting team from here on out. Obviously, the loss of Wrights will hurt, but I think collectively they can be good enough. They're not going to be an elite shooting team like Nate Oates wants them to be, but they're going to be good enough collectively.
Here's the thing, Rob. As we flip to the other side, Alabama scoring 102, when that offense is clicking, we know it's damn good, and it is excellent. But on the flip side, Kentucky is allowing 88.6 points per game in Southeastern Conference play. How would you reflect on the state of Kentucky right now, Rob?
Think about it like this, right? Kentucky was playing in their own building. They scored 97 points. They shot 48% from the floor. They were 11 for 27 from 3. That's good for 41%. They shot 16 for 20 from the free throw line. They grabbed 13 offensive rebounds out of 38 missed shots that they had, and they turned the ball over only 8 times in their own building, and they lost. They have given up at least 82 points in each of their last 7 of their 8 most recent games against high major competition. The problem with where they are defensively is that it creates such a fine margin for what you have to do to be able to win, right? Like you can't have anything close to an off night when you're going up against a team like Alabama or a team like you have to almost be perfect on the offensive end of the floor to be able to have a chance to beat a team that has the firepower that Alabama and the Florida and an Auburn all kind of have.
Before we transition, you have a thought on Kentucky. What is it?
I just wanted to circle back on it because I do think that their ceiling is as high as anybody in college basketball, right? When Kentucky goes out and plays their best game, I think that they can
disagree
beat
with
anybody
that.
in the sport. Yeah, I think that
I don't agree with that.
No, I think that when they play their best game, especially offensively, they are one of those teams where they can put up a number where they can basically beat you 115 and 110 if they have to. I think that they're that good offensively. But I think what you also see when we watch them against Alabama is a team that has figured out how to be able to get those big stops a little bit more consistently, how to be able to end possessions a little bit more consistently, how to be able to force turnovers a little bit more consistently. And to me, that's the big knock, right? Like we talked about it at length last week, Fan, about the issues that Kentucky has on the defensive end. And we saw them on Tuesday go and beat Texas A&M in their own building, giving up just 69 points in their best defensive performance of the season. And then they turn around and give up 100 to Alabama. Like that level of kind of inconsistency on that end is not something that is going to be conducive to them being able to make a run in March. So it is something where I don't think it limits them from being able to compete in the regular season, from being as good as they want to be, from being able to land these huge wins. But I do think that it gives them the margin of error is really, really small, and they're going to have to go on a run. Like we saw Alabama do it last year, and I think Alabama was a little bit of an outlier when it comes to doing things like that. Like I'm a little bit worried about that when it comes to Kentucky.
All right, Jeff, you have to offer a counter to that idea of highest ceiling.
Yeah, I just don't see that, Rob. I just don't see that. I see Alabama's having a higher ceiling. I think Duke has a much higher ceiling. I would say Auburn has a higher ceiling. I know offensively, I hear what you're saying, but defensively, they're so flawed in a lot of ways. Even though they have really good individual defenders, I just think if they put together their best game, it's still not as good as Duke's best game or Alabama's best game. To me, those are the two most talented teams. Auburn just, man, they've surprised me. They've really surprised, and they still surprise me when I look at what they've done, and then I look at the players on the court. Not to say they're not talented. I just don't think they're at Alabama or Duke level in terms of talent.
Yeah, look, you're not wrong. And the thing that's the most impressive about what Auburn has done here, especially today, like they're playing without a guy that is either the front runner or the co-front runner or number two, however you want to phrase it. It's Janai Broome and Cooper Flagg for National Player of the Year, right? They're playing without him. And nobody in the SEC, like you go on the road, doesn't matter who you're playing, like you're in for a dogfight. No one is expecting you to win any road games in the SEC. And they go out without Janai Broome and then win a dogfight against Georgia. And they lose Janai Broome midway through a game against South Carolina on the road, and they come out of that with a win. They play without Janai Broome against a Mississippi State team that just beat Ole Miss, the same Ole Miss that went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, right? They beat them by 22 at home without Janai Broome.
Yeah.
And, on today it was Tahad Pettiford, and he went nuts, and he carried that team, and he made all of the big shots, and he was awesome. And he was not the guy when they beat Mississippi State. The guy when they beat Mississippi State was Chad Baker-Mazara. Like he scored 8 points in the first 90 seconds of that game. They jumped out to a 10-0 lead, and it was cruise control. It wasn't cruise control, but they kind of had that thing in a stranglehold for most of that game. And Chad Baker-Mazara had 20 in that game.